Today we're starting with Chapter 1, and this is just an introduction to anatomy and physiology. You're going to be seeing and hearing a bunch of vocabulary. These terms we'll use throughout 201 and 202. First of all, what is anatomy? It's just the study of the structure and form of different parts of the human body and the human body as a whole. Human physiology is the study of how the body functions. So if we're looking at the heart, we're going to look at what the heart has to do, which is pump blood all over the body, and we're going to look at the structure and see that the way it's organized and the different tissues that are there and the valves and so forth, that is what enables it to perform its function. Now, the body is like building blocks. You start with the first block and then you add the second and third and so forth. And so the structural levels of organization, which you've heard in all biology classes, we start with the chemical level. And this is atoms and molecules. You know, atoms put together make molecules, and we have thousands and thousands of atoms that make these different molecules. So the chemical level is first. That's the first block. And then we add the cells. We use the chemicals to build the cells. And the cells are the molecules that are combined in specific ways. So cells are built of molecules, and the cellular level with the cells, the cell is the basic unit of structure and function of all living organisms. So we've started with chemical, we added cellular level. Now we're going to add the tissue level, and that's where you take two or more types of cells that work together to perform a common function. Now, tissues are made of cells, and then the extracellular matrix, or ECM is what we call that we can, that's around all the cells. And it can make a whole sheet or membrane, or the tissues can be arranged really irregularly. Like the cartilage that's in your nose, you've got very irregular tissue there, whereas your skin has a sheet of cells forming that tissue. So we started with chemical, we added cellular, we added tissues. Now we're going to add organs. Organs are made of two or more tissue types that perform a common function. So they have a certain shape and they have a specialized task. The graphic there is showing the esophagus. We know the esophagus is a tube that extends from the pharynx, the throat, all the way to the stomach. And its job is to get the food from the throat to the stomach. So it's designed in such a way to do that. And it's got different tissues there. It's got some muscle tissue and some epithelial tissue, as well as nervous tissue. Okay, so we had chemical, cellular, tissue, organ, and organs combine to make organ systems. And an organ system is just two or more organs that work together to perform a common function. Your digestive system is showing there, and the digestive system has quite a few organs in it. We've got, of course, the mouth and the pharynx and the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, and then we also have the liver and the gallbladder and the pancreas that are parts of the digestive system. And the function of the digestive system is to take in the food, absorb the nutrients from it, and get rid of the waste. Cardiovascular system is another organ system. It's only composed of heart, blood vessels, and blood. And so it doesn't have many organs in it. And its job is just to carry the blood throughout the body. So we had chemical, cellular, tissue, organ system, and all the organ systems combine to form the organism, which, of course, in our example, is a human body. Now, if you go back and you look at your objectives, we need to be working on these note card notes as we go. And your first objective stated, let me get to it. I have it somewhere. I don't know where. Can't put my hand on it. But you had some different terms to define. You had to define anatomy and physiology and all the different terms. And you would define, I've just gone over that. Looked at the levels of organization you had to list and give some definitions for that. So as you go through these videos, you'll be able to fill out those note card notes. So here's the 6 structural levels of organization. Chemical, which is atoms and molecules that build cells. Cells, the smallest unit of structure and of function for all living organisms. So if something's alive, it's got cells. So cells build tissues, tissues build organs, organs build organ systems, and organ systems make up the entire organism. So you need to know those levels and understand how they're put together and what they do. Now, when we use anatomy and physiology language, we've got some root words, and we combine those with different prefixes and suffixes, and that's why we have the prefix suffix quizzes, because if you know these root words, you'll be able to maybe figure out what the word means, because it's not the kind of vocabulary that you use in your daily life unless you're in the medical field. The theme of anatomy and physiology is everything that goes on in the body is to maintain homeostasis, which is keeping our internal environment constant, maintaining that. If we have an imbalance in our homeostasis, we can get sick, get a disease, or even die if it's not fixed. Our body's internal environment, we're talking about things like temperature, the chemical composition of your blood and all your body fluids, and lots of different things that go on in the body. And to keep us from having imbalances, we have to control variables and maintain them within a normal, very narrow range. Take your body temperature, for instance. Normal body temperature for years we thought of as 98.6. I think now they've adjusted that. But 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. When your body temperature goes up and you get a fever, you've got a homeostatic imbalance. So your body tries to fix it. If your body temperature drops, you have a homeostatic imbalance. So your body tries to fix it. And just to be honest with you, a lot of times we will actually use medicines to help because our body can't do it by itself. The core principles in anatomy and physiology, all of these relate to maintaining a homeostasis, are feedback loops, how structure and function are related, gradients, and the way cells communicate with each other. Now, the feedback loop's core principle, we got 2 mechanisms that help us maintain homeostasis. We have a negative feedback loop and we have a positive feedback loop. Negative feedback loops oppose whatever change is happening in our variable, and it tries to reduce what it's doing, to reduce the output. So when there's some sort of change, like your temperature goes up, there's some things that will happen to get it back down to normal or set point. And the feedback loop ends as soon as it's reset. So if your body temperature is climbing, what's one thing that always happens? You sweat. That's to get it back down, and so that the feedback loop can close, get your temperature back down. Now, in a negative feedback loop, we have a stimulus, a receptor, a control center, and an effector, and it's a loop. The stimulus is something that's going to, the stimulus happens like your temperature goes up, That's your stimulus. And a receptor or a sensor notices it. And that receptor tells the control center. And the control center can be as complex as your brain or spinal cord, or it may be other cells, cells of the nervous system or the endocrine system. So that control center then verifies that that variable is out of range. It's not at the set point anymore. And so the control center then tells other cells and organs how to fix it and get it back into normal range. And the organs and cells that it tells are called effectors. Now, the other mechanism for maintaining homeostatic imbalances is positive feedback loops. These are not nearly as common as the negative feedback loops, and they will increase the move from set point or normal range. So it's going to make the initial stimulus greater. Examples of this would be childbirth. When a woman goes into labor, her contractions are not very strong to start with. She may even question, is this real labor? But by the time that baby comes, if she's not having pain medicines and epidurals and so forth, she's not going to question it anymore because they're much stronger contractions because we're trying to push that baby out and let it be born. So the positive feedback loop increases the strength of the contractions.